All right, everyone, the denial stage of grief. That is what the Democrats have definitely achieved at this point. I'm seeing so many articles, link in the description, archived of course. You can check this one out if you want to, saying, well, RFK Jr.'s endorsement doesn't really matter that much. He was already on his way out, he didn't have that much support, and, you know, many of his audience, his fans, they'll probably go to Harris. That is definitely some copium right there. The endorsement is material. It matters. Here's the reason why. Donald Trump is about even with Kamala Harris in swing state polling. A little bit ahead, a little bit behind. It depends on the state. And RFK Jr. was intelligent enough to note that there were 10 competitive states, not just 6. This is something that's actually pointed out in the article. It's the one piece of credit that they give to him. And his endorsement does matter, though. Former Democrat, liberal, mainly drawing leftoids to his campaign, and he's endorsed Donald Trump. This is meaningful. This will shift the metric of the race. Now, will it shift it by a huge margin? No, of course not. It's going to be by the low single digits. Is that all you need in a close race where probably your opponent is being oversampled by 4 or 5 points? Yeah, that puts you over the finish line. At this point, I think that Trump has a 90% chance of winning. This may change depending on what happens at the debate. My expectation is probably it's no-brainer to you. My expectation is that Donald Trump is going to debate Kamala. He'll bring up issues. She will deflect. He'll try to, bring her out of the darkness that she's in. And she'll do the head-wagging sort of thing and say, I'm speaking, or something like that. It's pretty predictable. It's going to be a shit show of a debate. Can't wait to watch it, by the way. RFK Jr.'s endorsement, though, does matter. Don't let the legacy media tell you that it doesn't. He's been riding on 5 in the aggregate nationally. He's got disproportionate support in the swing states. Now, in a few of those swing states, it's too late for him to get off the ballot. And so the liberal legacy media is saying, well, in those states it's not going to have any impact. Yes, it will. He's still endorsed Donald Trump. The people that are paying attention to him, that are listening to him, they know what he's just said because they tuned into it. They know that he said, don't vote for me in this state. You're in Pennsylvania. You're in Wisconsin. Maybe I'm on the ballot. Maybe I'm not. But don't vote for me. In any other state, go ahead and vote for me. That's perfectly fine. He's just trying to get clout, to get leverage, basically. He's effectively been promised the head of the health department in a Trump administration. This would be an ultimate power move, by the way. Honestly, I'd rather see him as head of the CIA or something like that. And Trump did promise, by the way, that if his administration materializes, he's going to release all of the RFK and JFK files. And RFK Jr. was slightly uncomfortable, when he was on stage next to Trump, actually. He looked a little bit sidelined at the time. Trump has this tendency. Should have brought him in closer. I've got hiccups right now, actually, so my apologies. Probably should have brought him in a little bit closer and given him more of a center stage. But ultimately, it was good. I'd give it a B+. Yes. It's more than Kamala can pull off. Who does Kamala pull on stage? We've got Lizzo. Oh, my God. It's great. RFK Jr.'s endorsement matters mainly because of the kind of people that will gravitate to such a ticket. Number one, people who are anti-Voldemort treatment, we'll call it that, for the purposes of a YouTube video, of course. Well, that's meaningful because Trump has taken flack from especially the DeSantis fans on that token, so that matters. It may not flip everyone's vote, it may not change everyone's mind, but it helps. It's definitely helpful. Number two, people who, ironically enough, are on the far left, but who don't like the Democratic Party. Well, there's a growing coalition of those people now, isn't there? Once Kamala Harris decided to come out and berate the Gaza protesters, who tend to be entirely far left, yeah, that wasn't a good look. RFK Jr. probably absorbed more support as a result of that, by the way. He just threw that support to Donald Trump. So you've got a coalition of younger voters who may protest vote for Donald Trump, not liking his policies necessarily, not necessarily agreeing with his ideology, but just fucking hating Kamala Harris. And Kamala basically threw them to him too. I mean, this is going to be at least hundreds of thousands of people. We're going forward into an election in which in some of these states you could have a margin of victory that's in not even just the tens of thousands, but maybe even the thousands of votes. That's all it takes. If you get one extra vote over your opponent in a state, you get all the electors. So in close matches, any endorsement matters, especially when it's an endorsement from somebody who is not well-spoken. He has a vocal problem. I can't remember exactly what condition he has, but he has literal trouble speaking. But he is charismatic. I may not agree with all of his views. In fact, I strongly disagree with several of them. But it does matter. It will throw voters to Trump. Anytime you get an endorsement, anyone that's like a super fan of that individual is going to be more inclined to vote for you. It's like in the 2016 election. Donald Trump was beginning to rise up. Rand Paul was one of the first people to drop out. He's a person that I respect. I would have loved for Rand Paul to have run for the presidency. I would vote for him in a heartbeat. He would have my unequivocal support if he runs at any time in the future. For any office whatsoever, I would endorse him because Rand Paul's great. You know, he's one of the best. He dropped out and he endorsed Donald Trump. Now, up until that point, I had been hesitant to support Donald Trump. I had predicted that he would win, but I wasn't really a fan of him. Some of the things that he said rankled me. Some of the things he said were perfectly fine. I mean, I have no problem with many of his views, but I'm not 100% on board with what he believes in. Rand Paul drops out, and he says, I endorse Donald Trump. At that point, I endorsed Donald Trump too. That's because I trusted Rand Paul's judgment more than anything else. I'm glad that I made that decision. Donald Trump won. He did a good job as president, which is more we can say than for the Biden administration, etc. RFK Jr. is somebody who I don't necessarily respect on every issue. To be clear, I have a big problem with his views on guns. I have a big problem with his views on climate change denial. He's waffled on some issues and definitely is not a perfect candidate. But it's still meaningful. It will sway some people. Much like Rand Paul's endorsement of Donald Trump swayed me, RFK Jr.'s endorsement of Donald Trump will sway others. Now, mainly, his cohort, they've sampled for this, mainly his cohort is independent voters, left-leaning, generally speaking. Many of them will be reluctant to join a Donald Trump ticket, but some of them won't be. And that's literally all you need. You're talking about a couple 100,000 votes probably deciding the election at this point. Based on the polling, it's almost 50-50, and I think Trump is running ahead of that. He may even win the national popular vote. That's entirely possible. He'd be the first Republican, I think, in a long time to do that, by the way. That being said, though, the endorsement is meaningful because you're talking about independent voters mainly. Apparently about 74% of RFK Jr.'s voters were independent. Now, their enthusiasm was generally lower. But again, when you're talking about potentially a gap of 5,000-10,000 votes, yeah, it's meaningful. This article is bullshit, by the way. The idea that the endorsement doesn't really mean anything is literal copium, and I love to see it. That's about all. Peace out.